It was announced last week that former President Jimmy Carter, aged 98, is in hospice. I'm sad for his imminent loss because I respect him more than any other president who served in my lifetime. Several things about him have earned my respect. He's honest, he told it like it was, and didn't try to BS the nation. He was an environmentalist, second only to Theodore Roosevelt in protecting land, particularly Alaska. He remained active in his land protection interests for the remainder of his life. There were no wars during his presidency, and although he is a truly religious man, which I respect, he never tried to foist his views on me or the nation. Instead, he led in office and since by example. Big issues surrounding energy consumed Carter's presidency. This was the time of OPEC's oil embargo, which caused the first oil crisis and runaway inflation. I remember waiting in line for hours to get gas. Then there was the Iranian Revolution. Blowback from previous U.S. policy bit Carter in the butt. In 1953, Iran had nationalized the country's oil industry, and in response, the CIA fomented a coup which overthrew the legitimate government. Prior to nationalization, foreign interests were reaping most of the economic value of Iran's oil. Think about it. How would you feel if some foreign country took over our resources, took them away from us, giving us only penny on the dollar for their value? This was the situation in Iran before nationalization. Foreign oil companies were benefiting while most of Iran remained impoverished and certainly not benefiting from their own resources. The coup replaced a legitimate leader, Mohammad Mossadegh, with the Shah, a brutal dictator whose policies represented the U.S. commercial oil companies. Through the Shah, the U.S. effectively occupied and controlled Iran and its oil. After 27 years of brutal dictatorship, the Iranians had had enough and overthrew the Shah and the U.S. Unlike the previous CIA policy or the upcoming Reagan policies, Carter did not respond to these actions by starting an energy war. Rather, in response to the new oil paradigm, Carter identified fossil fuels as a source of our national insecurity and a way out of that by making the nation less dependent on oil through conservation and sustainable energy. During his presidency, the first energy tax credits, incentives for people to do something about energy, were started. Carter put solar hot water on the White House. This served two purposes: to save money and energy and to act as an example for the rest of the country. This example and its economic benefits spurred many companies to get into the fields related to sustainable energy. For the first time, Carter's tax credits opened up the market for companies and people who wanted to cut their energy costs. It was at this time that I began energy auditing, and soon after that, selling solar energy. I was selling for Sears, actually. Both of these jobs were created in response to Carter's energy policies. And by the way, some of those solar systems we installed 40 years ago are still working today. In retrospect, the election of 1980 between Carter and Reagan was a clear choice for the American people regarding our future energy policy. A transition to sustainable energy, or using our might to get a continuous supply of fossil fuels. President Carter talked to the nation in front of a fire with his sweater on. He talked about conservation and efficiency and new technologies for generating energy. He spoke of a flourishing country, independent of oil crises in the future, better able to control inflation based on rising energy prices. Then Governor Reagan spoke about energy being our inalienable right and offered the nation a militarized path to obtaining our fossil fuels. The nation chose Reagan, who beat Carter in a landslide in the 1980 election. The tax credits ended and the solar panels were taken off the White House. They ended up at Unity College, where my graduate school mentor later became president, and where they are still producing hot water. After his 1980 election, Reagan and his successors, remember G.W. Bush's drill baby drill, have taken the path he charted. We've had one war after another, all to protect our fossil fuel supply. Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, conflict in the Balkans where World War I was sparked over oil, Afghanistan for minerals and hopes for an eastern seaport for shipping oil. We've managed a continued imperialistic path for the last 40 years to supply ourselves with oil. But the cost in dollars and in human lives has been exorbitant. However, if you're invested in fossil fuels or munitions, the past 40 years have been a boom time. After 40 years of continued conflict to keep our energy flowing, it's clear we've not learned our lesson. The war in the Ukraine and the resulting chain of events, the rise in gas prices and the resulting inflation reminds us we are just as vulnerable now to international effects on our oil supplies as we were when Jimmy Carter was president. And now we know about climate change. As I think about President Carter, I can't help but wonder what our country would be like if we had made a different choice in November 1980. It's time we gave a serious look to our energy options and commit our nation to energy independence through sustainability and renewable energy. It's late, but hopefully not too late